Assume you work as a data analyst at a university and you've been asked to determine whether a new study method is more effective than the traditional study method. To do this, you've collected test scores from two groups of students, one group using the new study method and another group using the traditional method. You will use Ttest in Excel to compare the means of the two groups and determine if there is a statistically significant difference between them. In Excel, you have an option to choose between independent Ttest and paired Ttest. Independent Ttest scenario is when you have two separate groups of students, one using the new study method and another using the traditional study method. Scenario for a paired Ttest, you have a single group of students who were tested twice, once after using the new method and once after using traditional method. That's why in our case we will perform independent Ttest. There are several key assumptions that need to be met for independent Ttest. First one is independence of samples. You need to ensure that the data for the two groups are collected independently. How to verify it? You need to confirm that there is no overlap between the participants in the two groups. The second assumption is normality. Data in each group should be approximately normally distributed. You can verify it visually by creating a histogram or QQ plots. And the next assumption, equal variances. The variances of the two groups should be approximately equal. To check that, you can use either Levin's test or Ttest. Ttest can be done in Excel, and if the p-value is greater than 0.05, you can assume equal variances. Here we have our data. So in this column we have scores for students who used new method, and here people who use traditional method. To do Ttest in Excel, you need to go to data, then you pick data analysis, and here you have different options. Here we will pick Ttest to sample assuming equal variances. Okay, first of all, we select in variable one range. It will be our new method. You can even select with labels, but then you need to indicate that you have headers. So variable 2 range from B1 to B11. Hypothesized mean difference is 0. Then we indicate that we have labels because we picked with our A1 and B1. And then alpha is 5%, and then you need to select an output range. I want it to be here, so you need to pick any cell, or you can select a completely new tab. In my case, I selected this one, click OK, and this is the results of your Ttest. How to read the results? This is the average scores for each of the groups. This is the spread of our data in each group. This is number of observations. Pooled variance is the combined variance of the two groups assuming equal variances. Hypothesized mean is 0 as we inserted. The null hypothesis assumes that there is no difference between the means of two groups. Degrees of freedom is calculated as this number of observations plus this number of observations minus 2, or 20 minus 2 equals 18. T-stat value represents the calculated t-value for the test. The one-tailed p-value tests if the mean of the new method is greater than the mean of the traditional method. The critical t-value for one-tailed test, this is our critical one-tailed value at chosen significance level. This one is the two-tailed p-value, which tests if there is any significant difference between the means, and this is a critical two-tail value. And how to interpret our results? So if you look at one-tail test, our value is less than 0.05. That's why we reject the null hypothesis for one-tail test. So this suggests that the new method has a significantly higher mean score than the traditional method. Now if you look at two-tail test, again our value is less than 0.05, so we also reject the null hypothesis for a two-tail test. And now let's look at our both critical values. So those critical values are thresholds beyond which we reject the null hypothesis. So our calculated t-stat is 3 and is greater than both critical values. That's why we reject the null hypothesis for both one-tailed and two-tailed test. And our conclusion that there is a statistically significant difference between the test scores for the new method and the traditional method.